The Clemson Tigers owned this state, but we already knew that, didn't we? Fresh off the heels of another Palmetto Bowl victory, their 8th win over South Carolina in the last 9 meetings, the Clemson Tigers are riding a wave of momentum into December as they await their bowl destination. We're going to break all of that down and talk about the victory over South Carolina last weekend. 16-7, low scoring. We all said it would be low scoring, and lo and behold, if we didn't hit that one out of the park. But we've got a lot more to talk about as well. We'll get to that as the show goes along. But welcome into Around the Paw. I'm Garrett Mitchell, joined as always by Griffin and Clifton. And, guys, I've just got to say, ever since Saturday night, I've talked to a lot of my friends and acquaintances who are South Carolina fans, and, they're just all sad and dejected down in the dumps that their season's over and they're not going to a bowl. And, I had to tell every single one of them, look, guys, don't be sad. You've got plenty of chances to go bowling this December. And then I sent them a list of all 9 of the bowling alleys in the greater Columbia area.
I saw that photo, and that was on Facebook, and that was funny. Yeah, it was pretty funny. I think I commented on it. That was hilarious, man.
Look, I mean, we're not going to sit here and be all righteous, be all self-righteous, and say that after last year we weren't going to get a few extra shots in this year when we won. So, I think we all had a nice couple of days to play with the emotions of Gamecock fans after that one.
Yeah,
especially after the whole 31-30. That whole, at least with me and my friends that go to Carolina, it was finally nice. Just feel like finally, like, no more bragging rights. It's back to us, our state, our Palmetto Trophy, back where it belongs.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, 31-30. Wait, did South Carolina even gain 30 yards on 31 yards on offense on Saturday? It didn't seem like it.
They I mean, obviously they did, but it was a defensive battle, and I'll credit South Carolina's defense. They were able to keep their team in the game. It was able to keep the crowd in the game. Cliff and I were there at the game. We were in the box, and right off the cut, and I turned to him like when they were walking out, the whole sandstorm thing. I'm like, oh my Lord, like this is a very tough atmosphere to play in. And the scoop and score was huge. Cleo Barnes, second play of the game, was able to scoop and score 7-0 Clemson. And I think that helped a lot of the tension a little bit, especially in an away environment. And without that turnover, without that score, I really think the game could have went many other ways, but it put Clemson in the driver's seat first. And that's how Clemson are. They are very good when they score first. They're very good when they're in the driver's seat and playing their own game. And that was huge for a game like that.
Yeah, it definitely was. Talking about the atmosphere, they do have a great atmosphere with a sandstorm and everything. But I looked at you when that happened, and the stadium was shaking.
Yeah.
I looked at you and I was like, holy crap, like this press box is shaking, and that's crazy. Yeah. And but you know what was funny? In the fourth quarter, it wasn't shaking. Even when they were in it.
No, it certainly wasn't. The only thing that might have been shaking by that point in the game were the exits, because there were sure a lot of garnet and clad Gamecock fans that were trudging through them with their heads held low as Clemson drained off the final few minutes to another victory. But, going back to Cleo Barnes, and man, how many times have we said his name and talked about him this year? A true freshman, and I mean, probably one of the more dynamic true freshmen on the defensive side that we've had at Clemson in a long time. Well, he had the scoop and score, and then what did he do on the very next offensive snap for South Carolina? He just goes up and mosses a player that many consider one of the best receivers in the country, and intercepts a pass. And so Cleo Barnes was that catalyst that just put his foot down on the throats of the Gamecocks and set the tone for the defense that really carried over through the entire 4 quarters of that ball game.
Yeah, and Sweeney said it perfectly in the post-game interview. He said it is incredible to watch a freshman play so many different positions in the secondary, and he's good at all of them. And I think as a Clemson fan myself, and to other Clemson fans who, watch the game and listen to this podcast, I think it's safe to say that it is so nice to have Cleo Barnes for 2 more years, at least 2 more years, because
At least.
honestly, with the talent that he has, I mean, obviously, I think that he can go to the NFL draft. He can be another one of those secondary guys that for Clemson, another, a guy like AJ Terrell. That was the first person that came to name, but he is just incredible to watch. He will be a staple in this Clemson defense for the next 2 years. And honestly, with all these players leaving, especially, on the front seven, you have a couple guys leaving next year from the safeties and the cornerbacks, so like Nate Wiggins, for example, leaving for the draft. It's really nice to have somebody that you can rely on, that Clemson fans have had to rely on over the previous games this season. And he's only going to get better. He's only a freshman. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, then
Scary
you got Avion Terrell.
He had a
over
great game as
there.
well.
Yeah, he had a good game. And he's played well the last few games, and that he's gotten in there. So, I mean, the defense is going to be there for a while. And the one thing that I'm worried about is, it's been that way for 3 years, and it's the receivers, man. Are the receivers gonna get better? Like, I know we have 2 receivers coming in, right? And I'm glad we won that game. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of positives to come out of this game, but the one negative to come out of this game is our passing game was 0. Well, we had like 100 yards on the dot, but I mean, there were just so many things that we have to get better with in January after the bowl game.
Yeah. And, I was sitting there watching the game, and at times it was hard to watch. And, I was screaming at the television. We were running the ball right down their throats, and really doing it with impunity. There was nothing they could do to stop that. And we would rip off 2, 3, 4 first downs running the ball, and then we would come back and throw some half-cocked pass that was either woefully incomplete, flat out dropped, or intercepted. In one particular instance, it was the obligatory interception turnover. Clifton, you called it. Still won the turnover battle. Look, you win the turnover battle, you win. That's been the modus operandi for Clemson. But I mean, the passing game's got to get better. And I'm not going to sit here and blame it on injuries. Injuries hurt. Mm-hmm. Yes. You still had plenty of players on that field who have caught passes all year. You've got Cade Klubnik, who's completed his fair share of passes. These guys are all Division I football players at the Power 5 level for a reason. When you're put in a game, you're there to catch passes. And when somebody like Troy Stellato, who's had a great year, just point blank drops one that hits him right in the numbers that would have been a first down, then Houston, we have a problem.
And it would have sealed the game too. And there was one point during that game where Griffin and I looked at each other and we were like, man, what it would be to be a fly in Garrett's house right now.
We did say that. Yeah, I will say that. We did say that.
Well, I can't say
that's funny.
We went down to the beach and we had Thanksgiving with my parents down at the coast. They bought a place down there that last year. So I was sitting there looking at the water as all of the passing game flops were happening. So at least that did a little bit to calm my nerves. But that was probably a negligible impact at best, because I still said a few things I wouldn't repeat in church on Sundays.
For sure, but I mean, I will give the passing game some wiggle room, and I think that's because there is a lot of inexperience, especially in that Carolina game, and I know that Troy Stellato and guys like Tyler Brown have been great all year. Adam Randall too, he's shown flashes, but they have not seen the field a lot, especially at the Division I level. I'll just look at Stellato and Tyler Brown. Tyler Brown, obviously a true freshman, he's obviously going to have some kinks in his game, but he's going to be better as years goes on. Same thing with Troy Stellato. He's been fighting an injury. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt as well. I know that he'll be back in Clemson next year, and I think maybe the year after that. I think he's a redshirt sophomore, if I am correct. So. But Klubnik had his top 3 receivers out. He had Bo Collins out, who was basically a security blanket all year. He had Antonio Williams, who was DJU's security blanket last year, and he gained a little bit of chemistry with Cade over the Orange Bowl in the ACC championship game. And Cole Turner, which I think was Cade's top receiver at the end of last year. And I'm honestly very interested to see how this goes, especially with the larger amount of experience that kind of the second team now has because of Stellato, because of Tyler Brown, and even, guys like Ronan Hannafin and Noble Johnson. But I think you got to get Brenningstool back in the game a lot more. I think when he has the ball in his hands, he's third team All ACC for a reason. He's a junior and he's got one more year. I think you use him a lot better. But I'm going to stay optimistic about this passing game. You had a lot of injuries. A lot of players are coming back next year. You have a lot of talent on that side, and you're going to have plenty of players to show talent. If one's not doing well, another's going to do well. That's just how it's going to go, and it's almost like an embarrassment of riches, for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. The talent is there, but Clifton, do you worry about? And we'll only harp on this for a second, but do you worry that there might be a player development issue that's going on? Because you see guys that are talented, the talent's there, but at the same time, you don't see them really getting any better.
It's hard to say that. I mean, everybody's calling for the receiver coach's head and everything. And I think there's got to be some type of change because, like you said, the talent's there and you see flashes, every so often in games and stuff like that. And, but they're not consistent. And if they were consistent, well, I take that back. They are consistent. They're consistently not being consistent catching the ball.
Yeah, consistently.
And so, yeah.
Right.
And so, but we need them to be consistent, consistent catching the ball. And there's nobody really doing that. And so what do? Do you wait for more talent and try to grow them? Do you change coaches? There's got to be something done. Something's got to be done.
But I mean,
well, I'll tell you what, I'll throw this out there. I think you could kill two birds with one stone. If that's the way that Dabo Swinney wants to go, then I think you could probably do both simultaneously because look, one side of that coin's already polished. You've got the talent coming in. So, that leaves the dice on Dabo Swinney's board. It's whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that we talked, especially in the summer, about, who's going to take the next step out of the receiver room. And I think all three of us brought up Antonio Williams. And I think that kind of question remains unanswered because he was hurt, obviously, earlier on in the season, and he was out for the season later on. So I'm just going to refute this to next year. If, we don't see another step out of, maybe a guy like Tyler Brown, maybe you start throwing the question marks up there. But for me, I didn't see enough out of Antonio Williams to refute kind of the whole wide receiver progression. But, if a guy like Tyler Brown, who has very raw potential, he has that untapped homegrown potential, and he doesn't turn into somebody that, Clemson fans expected to see, I think then for sure you have to make that change. But I don't know if you do that this season. If you do, I won't be against it because obviously there have been situations in the past, but I wouldn't be surprised if, wide receivers coach Tyler Grisham stays around another year.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Now, I think let's while we're still on the topic of Saturday's game, let's end our talk about that on a positive note. We're going to go back to the defense. We've talked about the secondary and just how well that they've played and the mark that they've made, but how about the front seven as well? And those guys, I mean, it's just a revolving door of talent. Take your pick.
Yeah.
You've got veterans. You've got young guys. You could put them in there, toss them around in a blender, and pull four guys out and stick them on the defensive line right now, and they would be dominant. But South Carolina they couldn't run the ball at all. Period. 57 total yards, and frankly, I think maybe 30 of those probably came in the fourth quarter. When the game was well in hand. I mean, and this is what I told somebody watching the game. I texted a friend of mine. We were blitzing on every play by midway through the third quarter. It was a total jailbreak, and there was not one damn thing South Carolina could do to stop it.
That's what I said last week, too, in my game prediction. It was going to be a battle of the trenches because this O-line, this Clemson D-line, and there's obviously been, whole talks about this whole season, and that's what you started to see. That as soon as that second half hit, as soon as that game became incredibly close, this Clemson defense, time and time again, helped them win that game. And I don't know the exact number of times they got to Rattler, but they pressured him a whole lot of times, made him throw those incomplete passes. But that was huge, and it changed Rattler's rhythm. It changed Beamer's whole rhythm with the whole offensive side. So I give full on credit, and it's very nice once again to see that those playmakers, Peter Woods, TJ Parker, they're going to be back another year, and they'll be back for many years to come. And it gives us a whole sigh of relief that maybe it's not bad after all that we're losing so many guys to the draft and so many talented guys who have been huge pieces for plenty of seasons.
And
yeah, I'm excited to see.
I love what that kid's doing.
Yeah, I'm excited to see linebackers who's coming in behind Trotter and who they're going to throw in there, because I know Woodaz can play just about any position back there, and so I would definitely look forward to seeing him more. But behind him, I don't really know anybody's name behind him. And so I would really like to see who they're going to put back there, when he has to take a rest or whatever, especially in the bowl game, since, we haven't talked about it yet, but he's gone to the NFL. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to segue into the next point, and we were going to talk about Jeremiah Trotter. But before we do, you need to trot on over and visit our fine sponsors, Arden's Burger Grill at 1280 18 Mile Road Central, home of the famous double dip wings, mouth-watering burgers, sizzling grills, even great Asian food. Anything that you have a hankering for, they've got it. So even though the season's over, that doesn't mean, or at least there's no more home games, that doesn't mean you can't go see our friends at Arden's Burger Grill, because it doesn't matter what season it is. They'll be happy to help you out with all of your lunch and dinner needs. So go see them, 1280 18 Mile Road Central, and tell them the crew from Around the Paw sent you there. But yes, news broke this afternoon. Jeremiah Trotter, as expected. I don't think this was anything that crept up on anybody or was unexpected. Announced he will forego his senior season and enter the NFL draft. And, quite frankly, as good as this guy has been over the last 2 years, and this year particularly, he would be foolish not to strike while the iron's hot. Right now, his draft stock is as high as it's ever going to be. I think he's rated as the number 2 overall linebacker to come off the board, and which puts him easily in the first round.
Yeah, I think it'll be toward the end of the first round, but maybe beginning of the second round. But yeah, he's definitely a late first, early second round pick.
He's earned it too.
Yeah, he's a day one guy.
Yeah.
I think the other guy, the guy in front of him is Alabama's Dallas Turner, who I think is the top. I think he's in the running for the best linebacker in the country. And credit to him, I've seen him play. He's absolutely incredible. But Trotter's just as good. And I think that, he has really solidified that, number 2 floor, especially in this last month with games against Notre Dame, his North Carolina game. He was present a lot in the South Carolina game as well. He had a couple tackles. But honestly, I just seeing another Clemson player in the NFL, especially potentially being a routine Sunday player, it just makes me really happy to see, honestly. And, it sucks you're not going to see him at Clemson in years to come, but he's obviously going to be a Tiger. Once a Tiger, always a Tiger. And he's had a lot of great moments in the Orange and White and Death Valley. So wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, he definitely threw the axe a couple times in all 4 of those last games. So, yeah, I mean, he definitely made the quarterback worried in every one of those games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? While we're talking about linebackers, guys, we haven't mentioned this yet, and I've even seen several insider reports that have mentioned this or hinted at it, and talking to a few friends of mine who follow these things very closely. There seems to be a general consensus among all of us that maybe it should happen, and if not, maybe likely that it happens, and that's Barrett Carter. Barrett Carter is obviously a very talented player, but you don't really hear his name being amongst the top 4 or 5 linebackers taken in this draft. Trotter's stock is as high as it's ever going to be. I still think that there's a lot of room for Carter to improve his draft stock. Could we possibly see him come back next year in the same vein that Xavier Thomas and Tyler Davis and Rook and those guys came back Could we see Carter possibly come back for a fourth year to raise his stock? And if that happens, pair him with Woodaz and Sammy Brown coming in, then all of a sudden I think you're looking pretty good at linebacker again.
I think he should. And I know that the NFL obviously brings the money, brings the fame. And if Barrett Carter goes to the draft, I think that he's a day 2 pick between maybe low round 2 going all the way to round 5. He's going to be a top pick. But if you stay another year, you have the chance of being an even better pick. And I think that the potential is there for Barrett Carter. He has had a little bit of an up and down year. I've been impressed in some situations, and sometimes I haven't. I think that he was the guy that missed the tackle for that touchdown that South Carolina scored. I don't know if it was him. It was one of the linebackers, but I think it's perfect. You are now the top linebacker in your group. You got Wade Woodaz, and you're a great mentor for a guy like Sammy Brown. But you have even younger guys like D. Creighton and Jamal Anderson who are also eager to come up and try to creep into that spot that Trotters kind of leaving over. But honestly, you're not making a bad decision. If you're coming back to Clemson, you're going to raise your draft stock as high as you can. You're coming back to Death Valley. I mean, I'm pretty biased, but it's a pretty cool place to play. But either or, you're going to the NFL, and you're going to play snaps no matter what. So it's up to him. I think he should stay, improve his stock more, be a potential first, second round pick, but it's up to him, honestly. But my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with that. But he is the one that missed the tackle on the Duke quarterback that scored that second touchdown for them. And it pretty much, to me, that touchdown sealed the deal in that game. And he did miss that tackle. And then he came back the next week and said that he was out of shape pretty much. And I mean, I think he should come back. Again, I'm kind of like Griffin. I'm a little biased because I'm a Clemson fan, and I want to see every Clemson player all 4 years. But I do think there is some parts of his game that he can improve on and get better in college.
The best is yet to come, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, guys, now that the regular season is over, and look, it was for all of the tumultuous nature of the first 8 games of the year, 4-4 through 8 games, 2-4 in ACC play. Not something I think any of us can sit here and realistically say we ever thought we would see from a Clemson team. Look, there was a hole in the bottom of the boat, and it was sinking fast. And whatever Dabo Swinney had to do, whether he patched the hole, got the bilge pumps to start working and started pumping water out of the ship, whatever he did, it got things rolling again. And right now, I would put this Clemson team up against anybody in the country in terms of how hot they are and how much confidence they're playing with. And so they win their final 4 games, 2 of those being against top 20 ranked teams, Notre Dame and North Carolina. And now they have not quite a month, but 3.5 weeks where they can practice, get healthy. You're going to get some of those guys back. I think Antonio Williams has a good chance of being back for the bowl game. And you're going to have a healthier product on the field wherever Clemson goes and whoever they play. So let's talk bowl projections.
Venables will probably be back. Venables will probably be back.
Yeah.
He was back
the last game.
Yeah, he was back for the South Carolina game. He was on the roster, like healthy, but of course they didn't need him, so they didn't put him out there.
Right. So, let's talk about where this Clemson team could wind up and who they could be playing. And we've touched on this before. The trendy pick right now that I'm seeing in a lot of circles is the Holiday Bowl in San Diego against Oregon State. And Cliff, you're shaking your head. All right. What are you hearing? Do you know something we don't?
No, I don't want to go. I want to go to the game. So I want it to be in Florida. I do not want it to be in California. And I don't care if we play DJ.
You don't want to go to sunny SoCal and see the palm trees. Look, if it's in San Diego, you can justify a trip to Tijuana.
Yeah, that's
expensive.
That's expensive, bro. Like, I want to go to the Gator Bowl where we can go down there, have a good time, and see the Tigers in person. Like, if they're in California, I can't go. I'm not going.
Right. And
One,
San
you
Antonio
know,
was another destination that I've seen mentioned. And look, I love San Antonio. I've been there.
yeah,
It's a beautiful city. The I tell everybody, if you ever have a chance, go to the San Antonio Riverwalk. I mean, it's a wonderful place. I just don't have the time or the money to go to San Antonio for a bowl game on a tight schedule. So I'm with you. You know, send us to Florida. Send
yeah.
us somewhere near the beach that's a reasonable driving distance away, good food, a good game, and you can make it happen and have a nice trip down there. So, yeah, send us to Florida and let's play somebody like Kentucky. I don't know.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to think. Who have I think I've seen Oregon State. I've seen the Holiday Bowl, Oregon State. I've seen the Gator Bowl. I've seen the Reliquist Bowl.
Which used to be
Yeah,
the
but
Outback Bowl, by the way.
yeah, but Oregon State was a big one. I saw LSU, which I think LSU and Notre Dame should go face to face. I think that'd be a great game.
Yeah.
And then the two I've seen is Oregon State and Tennessee, a rematch of the Orange Bowl last year. I think that'd be a fun matchup. But I think any one of those, 4 loss teams that, obviously have something to prove, maybe another Pac-12 team other than Oregon State could be cool. But honestly, I think Oregon State wins a match made in heaven. You're going to get views. I think if the bowl committee wants to do something that gets people talking and gets people thinking, I think Oregon State's your best bet. But honestly, the fate's in their hands. It's not in ours. But
Yeah. So
I'd love
right
to see that, though.
now, as of right now, this is what I see. You've got the Holiday Bowl against Oregon State. You've got the Gator Bowl against Kentucky. You've got the Gator Bowl against LSU. You got the Holiday Bowl against Southern Cal. You got the Holiday Bowl against UCLA. You got the Pop-Tart Bowl against Oklahoma State.
Those could all be cool games. USC,
Yeah.
not so much because I don't know what Caleb Williams is doing, but that game could be a snooze fest. But all those games seem cool.
And look, I don't think I don't think that USC's defense could stop an ice cube in an iceberg from hitting an iceberg. It's just that bad. But
Yeah.
I don't even think Clemson couldn't help but score on USC's defense right now. So,
I think anybody could.
Yeah, and right now, which one of those teams? So let me ask you this: the way our offense is playing right now, which is not great, right? Which one of those teams do you think our offense matches up well with?
Probably Kentucky.
That's what I was thinking.
I'd say Kentucky or Oregon, because Oregon State plays slow too. They love running the ball. They have a great running back in Damien Martinez. And DJ plays a lot like Kate. He only throws when he needs to, and when he throws, he hits his receivers, especially against a team that's like less fortunate. But I think Kentucky would work too. They're a very run-heavy team. Devin Leary was a North Carolina State Wolfpack player, so that could be a little bit of a revenge game. They've beaten each other once before to each other. But I think any of those games would be cool. I just strong rushing attack, strong defense. I think Kentucky and Oregon State kind of fit that perfectly. I don't want to see another Tennessee game, if I'm being honest. No. But if it is, feel more than welcome.
Yeah.
There's other options.
That's one point it's one point that I saw that was brought up in some of the media reports and ESPN and some of the things that they were prognosticating and talking about is they're not sure that the bowl selection committee wants to have the two teams that played each other last year in a bowl play each other again in a bowl the very next year. They say, variety is the spice of life, and the bowl committee wants to put, prime time, big time matchups, games that'll draw in views. And I just don't know that the fan bases from Clemson or Tennessee would be all that hyped to play one another again. It was cool last year. Sucks we lost, but it was a cool matchup. And, it just wouldn't have the same luster this year. Now, you play Oregon State, you've got the ready-made storyline. If you're looking at dollar signs, that honestly might be the one. Even if we want to go to Florida, money-wise, I don't know that you can beat a Clemson-Oregon State matchup.
It's perfect because I know these games that Clemson are supposed to be playing in like the projections, they're all like 3 days between the New Year's Six Bowls. I think it's perfect because you're slowly building up to that big game. I think that starts it off perfectly with the game against former teammates, a former starting quarterback against his team. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, just give me a game after Christmas, and I'm good.
Yeah,
give me a game after Christmas.
Yeah.
and in Florida, and I'm good.
Yeah. Well, guys,
Fair enough.
I tell you what, as we get ready to put the final touches on this episode, the Clemson Tigers football team might not.
We didn't mention something
no,
earlier.
I'm getting there.
Oh, you're getting there. Okay. All right.
I'm getting there. Don't worry.
Well, I'm talking. Did you talk about backup quarterback leaving?
Oh, no, we haven't. Okay, so let's back up.
That's what I was talking about. Let's back up a little bit.
See, we have so many great things to talk about on here. We're going to miss all of our talking points if we're not careful. So, Jeremiah Trotter entering the NFL draft. We've talked about that. Well, you've got your first player that's hit the transfer portal or is going to be in the transfer portal, and that's backup quarterback Hunter Helms. He announced it today, just a few hours after Trotter. And when you look at Hunter Helms, he's been with Clemson for 4 years. He's only played in 9 games in 4 years. He's completed 23 passes, 218 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This is a young man that has stayed the course, has been a loyal Clemson Tiger, has made impacts in the few opportunities that he's had to do so. And, frankly, he's given Clemson everything that he can. I really hope Hunter Helms lands somewhere where he has a legitimate shot to be the starter. Maybe, a smaller program, an App State or a Furman, Coastal Carolina type school, something of that size. And he has a legitimate shot to become a starter or an impact player because by all accounts, he's a great young man and he's earned that opportunity.
For sure. He got his degree too, which is something to note. And, all these Clemson players that want to transfer, especially guys like Hunter Helms, I just want to wish him the best of luck. I hope Helms gets a starting job, like you said, Garrett. Maybe small group of 5 FCS school. I'd love to see him play one last year every Saturday. I'd love to see it, and I hope he gets it. I hope he competes for it. He's a Tiger for life, and I can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Garrett, you kind of read my mind. I was thinking Furman, App State, Coastal. I would love it would be cool to see him I think it would be cool for him to go to Furman and then go to the playoffs and maybe win a national title in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? At that level, because they're good enough to do it. Yeah. Yeah, they're good enough. Yeah. Furman is good enough to do that in the next couple of years. And so that would be kind of cool to see him go there. But you just don't know where he'll land. But again, he stick to the course and got his degree and did what he had to do to back up the starter, whoever that was at the time. And congrats. And, I want him to do good wherever he goes.
Yeah, you have to think he was the backup quarterback to 3 different starting quarterbacks over 4 years. I think his first year in Clemson, he was the backup to Trevor Lawrence. And then you had, he was the backup to the backup. You had Trevor Lawrence and DJ Uiagalelei ahead of him. Then he was the backup to DJU and now the backup to Cade Klubnik. And, you talk about loyalty. There's not too many players, I think, who would stick around to be the backup for 3 different successive quarterbacks. Well, he did that. He was a great teammate, a consummate leader, a true Clemson Tiger. He's got his degree. Now go find somewhere where you can compete for a starting job and be great. And that's my wish for Hunter Helms.
Me as well.
And he's good enough to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt he is. And, I've said it. There are a lot of smaller schools in the country he would have been starting for long before now.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that the transfer portal was kind of looking like different schools were looking at him when he was at Clemson telling them to enter the transfer portal, and he stayed. It just shows the heart he's got, the loyalty he has, and whoever has him next, you got a good one for sure.
No doubt about it. All right, well, going back to what I was just about to say before we got sidetracked as we get ready to wrap this show up, the Clemson football team's not going to be competing in the college football playoffs this year or have a chance at a national championship, but you can't say the same for a couple of other teams on Clemson's campus, and those are the Tigers soccer teams. And right now, they are putting together quite a run. And Griffin, this is your forte. You're a soccer guy, and you've been following the soccer programs. Just talk about where they stand right now. And it's a lot of fun what these guys and ladies are doing.
Yeah, well, let's get to the real football team, shall we? Yeah, the men's and women's soccer are both in their final rounds of the NCAA tournament. I'll start with the men. The men are in the quarterfinal for the NCAA tournament. They are, I believe, the 9 seed. Yeah, they're the 9 seed.
Yep, 9
and
seed.
They host the number 16 seed Stanford, who took off the number 1 team in the whole tournament. With that being said, Clemson men's soccer have a home game on Saturday night. I believe it's at 6:00. And it's an Elite Eight matchup. And I don't think Clemson had that 2 years ago in their national championship run. And anyone in the Clemson area should go. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere. I'm very excited to go to it, and I think I am covering it. I'm excited just to just see what happens. It's the Clemson 2 years ago we're national champions, and 2 years they're almost back in the same place. And the women are in an even better spot. They're in the Final Four. They're in the official College Cup itself. So they'll be playing in Cary, North Carolina. They're playing Florida State, who they've played twice already. They've lost twice, but like I've said before, it's very hard to beat a team 3 times. And they're the number 1 team in the whole tournament. They lost in the ACC tournament to them in the final. So how nice would it be for this Clemson team, who have been just incredibly gritty? They beat, I believe it was Penn State in their previous game. They beat them 2-1. Both these teams are just incredibly exciting to watch. If you can't get there in person, watch them on TV. I know that they're on the ACC network or ESPN or something around that, but these 2 teams they're the real deal. I've been a soccer guy all my life, and they're 2 very exciting teams to watch. And for those that think soccer's boring, these teams are going to prove you wrong. Trust me.
Yeah, that's not boring, especially these teams. They're like you said, they're really gritty. They're really hardworking. They don't give up. If they're down late, they don't give up. Both of these teams. I've seen both teams score late. The women, they scored with under 3 minutes one time to take the lead. And then the men at one point scored with 5 seconds left in the game to win the game. And it's crazy. These 2 teams are probably the best 2 soccer teams that I've seen at Clemson since I've been paying attention to soccer at Clemson. And besides the men winning it in 2021. But yeah, they're great. They're 2 of the best. So yeah, go out and support these guys.
For sure.
Cary, North Carolina is not that far away. And so go up there and support them in the College Cup. And then go to Clemson, to Riggs Field, and see the Tigers one last time,
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'll vouch for what the 2 of you said. Look, when you get a great soccer match between 2 very good, evenly matched teams, and you get a packed house and the crowd going, it really is, for anybody that's never seen it, it's a lot more fun than you might imagine that it is for a sport that typically doesn't have very high scores. So much more goes into it than that, and it's a lot of fun. So go check out the Clemson men's soccer team, especially at Riggs Field Saturday night at 6:00.
Yeah. NCAA tournament games, it's win or go home. You don't get another chance, and a lot of tension, a lot of just action. Historic Riggs is one of the best places to play in college soccer. So if you're in the area, for sure, you won't regret it. Trust me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, and we'll be talking about basketball probably in our next episode too.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about basketball.
We'll throw that out there. Yeah, we haven't forgot about Clemson basketball. They're off to a great start, by the way. My guy PJ Hall, I've mentioned before. I know PJ and his whole family. Called that young man's name on the radio for Dorman High School ever since he was in the 9th grade. And, it's great to see him be one of those team leaders and help lead the men's basketball program, who's really just playing great ball to start the year. We're going to talk about that on our next episode of Around the Paw. So that gives you something to look forward to. But in the meantime, we hope everybody's enjoyed this show. A lot happening right now. And I think a lot of good things that are happening right now, a lot to be excited about, a lot of positives and trending in the right direction. So we hope you've enjoyed this show. Again, I'm Garrett Mitchell for Griffin Barfield, Clifton Kennedy, our little motley trio here on Around the Paw. As we always say before we sign off, it's a great day to be a Clemson Tiger, and go Tigers. We'll catch you next time.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.